We're joined right now on RealAgriculture.com by Kevin Greer. He's with the George Morris Centre, based in Guelph, Ontario. Welcome today, Kevin.
Good to be here.
Kevin, let's talk a little bit about the ethanol mandate. There's a lot of pressure right now due to the poor U.S. corn crop, rising, the impending rising food prices. There's a lot of pressure right now on the U.S. government to change some of the ethanol mandate to sort of provide some relief here. Do you think that's something they should really be considering in this environment right now?
They should consider it in any environment. The reality of it is that it's a government management, government planning, central planning sort of idea for to encourage ethanol use in the United States and also in Canada, for reasons that most environmentalists now see as flawed or if not failed. So even ignoring drought, the ethanol mandate should be eliminated in both Canada and the United States, just on a point of principle, if nothing else. You compound it with the disastrous drought that's going on right now in the United States, and to a lesser extent in Ontario, and you have all the more reason for questioning a mandate that basically forces 40 or more % of the corn crop into, again, a failed policy. So I've said repeatedly, it's unfortunate that it takes a disastrous drought to get people to wake up and realize the folly of what we're doing with regard to the ethanol policy.
So if we were to provide whether it's long-term or a short-term relief of the mandate in the U.S., based on your analysis or the analysis of others, what do you think would be the impact on corn prices or food prices? Like, would we really see that dramatic drop?
Well, unfortunately, if you had if you waived the mandate, in other words, if you said that we're not going to impose that you need to have X number of gallons of ethanol produced from corn, it wouldn't have a big impact immediately, because the structure and infrastructure is already in place. There's all kinds of variables that would still keep that sort of corn volume off the market. So it's not a short-term solution. It is a definite long-term solution, meaning perhaps a year or more, but it wouldn't provide any pricing release, much pricing relief in the short term. It's again, it's a policy that can't be just quickly turned off or on in terms of its pricing impact right now.
So why isn't this? You're providing a somewhat of a convincing case here. Why do you think that this mandate is not being the relief of it is not being more seriously considered?
Well, your definition of serious. There are governors in the United States that are asking the Environmental Protection Agency to waive the mandate. Livestock producer groups are, congressmen, senators. I mean, the Obama administration doesn't appear ready to do it, but the word serious, there's serious pressure on them to do so. But again, unfortunately, it's not going to relieve the coming pressure, let's say, for the next quarter, that sort of thing. It's more of a longer-term thing. Perhaps by spring it would start to have an impact. But again, you got to get it in motion before it starts to have any sort of positive impact. The fact that it's not going to provide serious relief, say this coming fourth quarter. When I say serious, I mean dropping corn prices to where they would be without the mandate. It won't be happening this winter. It won't provide serious relief this winter, but it'll start to have an impact later on.
What's interesting is that I've watched the last week's Republican convention, and I've watched this week's Democrat convention, and renewable fuels comes out, but definitely this issue of ethanol production really has not come up at all. Are you surprised by that?
I'm not surprised. No, I mean it comes up when in the primary season when the politicians are wending their way through the Midwest states, in particular Iowa, which is the first caucus state. I mean, Al Gore, who's supposedly the environmental icon, admitted that his endorsement of ethanol was sheerly political back in the days when he was running for president, he admits that ethanol is not the environmental panacea that he once said it was, and that he did it for political purposes. In other words, he's done his mea culpa. But the fact that it's not being mentioned at the convention, which is largely urban focused, is not surprising to me at all. The troubling thing is that again, the Canadian ethanol policies our livestock folks are realizing and are starting to pound home the fact that our ethanol policies are adding to our troubles. In other words, politicians and government folks have always said, hey, come on, it's the U.S. that has the big impact. Canada's little ethanol policies don't mean much. But research with the George Morris Center on behalf of the cattlemen and the pork guys and the Canadian Meat Council has shown that not only does the U.S. hurt us, but the Canadian ethanol policies are piling on. In other words, the Canadian policies of mandated use, subsidized capital grants, subsidized operational grants make the Canadian situation worse than in the United States. So I'm glad to see that the Canadian Pork Council is calling for the government to assess its mandated use of corn for ethanol, and I'd like to see more of that because, again, our policies, we cannot ignore that Canada's policies are making it worse. So
what sort of appetite?
Argument,
what sort of appetite does the Harper government have to looking at changing some of these mandates?
Well, this so-called conservative government has shown no inclination to look at it. The ag minister seems to think that for some reason that our Canada's ethanol policies are not making the situation worse. At the George Morris Center, we've proven that they are making it worse for cattle and hog producers, and it's costing cattle and hog producers, and it's costing our meat industry in terms of the volume of production that can stay in the industry. So, this so-called conservative government, who seems to be wedded to central planning on this issue, is very confusing to me. Let alone the Alberta government and all the governments across the country that's again wedded to this failed and disastrous policy.
So, when whether you're in Canada or in the U.S. The pro-ethanol lobby will tell us that gas prices, your fuel prices are lower because of ethanol. Do you agree with that?
That and all the other claims. Again, it's just part of the arsenal that's been proven time and time again to be, if not false, certainly misleading in terms of order of magnitude. And again, whether it's the environmental or whether it's, here's Canada as a net exporter of oil, and we're talking about import replacements. So, I mean, these all arguments are just tiresome. And again, it's finally this disaster is putting in focus. I mean, the good news is that the ethanol industry is on the defensive, and they've never been on the defensive before, taking out newspaper ads and these kinds of things. They've had the playing field to themselves for a long time, and finally, these policies are coming into focus. And the first time they came into serious focus was when the U.S. increased the mandate, the renewable fuels mandate in 2007, which basically resulted in a massive increase in corn prices, and now we've got this drought. So, which again, it's putting into focus. So it's good to see them on the defensive, if nothing else.
Kevin, thanks a lot for joining us today, and once again, I appreciate the candidness, and we'll talk to you again very shortly.
Okay, Sean, thanks for the call.